Hey everyone, I want to talk all about how I recover from sensorimotor OCD, primarily swallowing and saliva sensations, but I've had blinking, breathing, hyper-awareness of basically my bodily movements, almost like I was constantly doing kung fu all the time, like I was just very hyper-aware of my arms in space. I was very hyper-aware of my thumbs for a few months at a time. I never really talk about that one. I was very hyper-aware of my belt line because my body dysmorphia and the fear of being overweight, and very hyper-aware of clothing sensitivities. And I want to break all that down. I want to show you firsthand how I reached OCD and anxiety recovery, especially when it came to sensorimotor. Sensorimotor was the crux, the cornerstone of where I had to apply unconditional life acceptance, not so much unconditional self-acceptance. That came a lot with my body dysmorphia and my beliefs about I need to look a certain way to get girls or impress my wife or be accepted by other people and stuff like that. But strictly in this video, I want to break down what I had to do when it came to sensorimotor, all the mistakes I see. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's covered incorrectly in almost everything I see. It's understandable because if someone comes in and they have a background in OCD and helping people, you know, you really can understand that look. If someone's afraid of, say, touching something like this, you can have them touch this from an exposure standpoint, but then they really don't touch about the fear of feeling contaminated, the fear of getting a family member contaminating them and killing them, like a harm fear. And sensorimotor just works. OCD is OCD, but it just doesn't work in the same way. It doesn't make it any more difficult to recover from, but the information surrounding it is usually just kind of wishy-washy. It's not anyone's fault. It's very hard to understand sensorimotor OCD when you've never experienced it. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below, let me know what you think about this video. So my entire life, I have been trying to avoid feeling a certain way. Now that was avoiding feeling uncomfortable, avoiding feeling like I was overweight, avoid feeling rejected in a sense by females, avoided any type of hard strenuous labor such as building things because I was afraid I was going to lose muscle. It all came down to avoiding feeling uncomfortable. That was my entire life. My whole life was avoiding feeling uncomfortable. But what was really odd was I faced discomfort much better than most people I've ever met. Now, not saying that in a cocky way. It's just I meet a lot of people and we all have OCD and people just, they don't do anything, which is understandable because the suffering feels so real. So that was a real mind twist for me because I was always going to the gym. I was always going to music festivals and dancing until I couldn't, move my legs anymore. My legs would be shaking. Even when I was suffering really badly when I moved here. Yes, I went through a stint where I didn't do anything. And I talk about how I gained a bunch of weight and smoked a lot and drank a lot and played video games. But that was a very short period of time. My whole life before all that, I still avoided feeling uncomfortable, but I still did a bunch of crazy stuff my whole life. So when I was in grad school, I was really stressed. I always talk about this. My dad died, then my aunt died, then my dog died. I was doing schoolwork 60 hours a week. I was playing video games until 2, 3 in the morning. I was waking up to go to the gym at 5 in the morning. It was just it was a very, very weird time in my life. I basically lived off dopamine rushes. I wanted to be the first person done in school. I liked being in the cadaver lab because of the rush of looking at dissected bodies, which sounds weird unless you're in medical and you know how interesting that can be. Playing video games for 20, 30 hours a week. Even then, even when I was in my grad school and getting my doctoral program, I still was playing video games at very high levels. I was going to the gym 2 hours every day in the morning. I basically, and then I was drinking, numerous and copious amounts of caffeine and pre-workout. So I lived life pretty close to the edge, as you could say. I think my blood pressure is probably like 180 over 120 at all times. And I still found ways to hang out with my fiance at the time, now my wife Erica, and go to music festivals and hang out with my friends. So it was a very crazy time period. So when I became latched with OCD, I had tinnitus at first, which I didn't think was OCD. So I had tinnitus first. After about 3 or 4 months of not sleeping, going to the audiologist, going to the hospital, having them compulsively check my eardrums, being like, hey, look, you have a bunch of scar tissue because I have sets of tubes in both ears, I think 3 and 4 in this one, or 4 and 3 or something. I developed blinking OCD when I was driving. So I was driving and I was thinking, hey, well, there's some things you habituate to. And I would put a hand on the steering wheel, foot on the gas pedal, and then blinking, and then boom. In that moment, massive panic attack. My life changed forever in that second. I became chronically latched with blinking. It was just like boom, 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 boom. My forehead muscles were so fucking sore because of how much I was blinking, or just like the stress of noticing my blinking. And what happened was, sorry, my 20% battery just came on, so hopefully I get this video done in time. And then what happened was I spent the next September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, 9 months being the most compulsive avoidance human ever. I ever thought a human could be. Playing video games all the time, not going to work, smoking 2 packs of Juul vape a day, constantly using adult websites. Like, I was just jumping from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, one thing to the next. By the way, I did reach 1 year of no pornography, which I will talk about that in another video. I have many people ask me about that and what that's done for my life. It's done many great things. Yes, do I miss watching pornography? Of course I do. But it is a much, much, much better life for me. I'm much more connected with my wife. The sensations aren't so instant gratification, but I'm very happy. And this does have to do with my sensory motor, because watching pornography was one of my largest compulsive behaviors. I get this a lot. They're like, oh, watching pornography and OCD don't matter. Yes, they do. I can't tell you how many people come and I work with me that have a very hard time watching pornography, stopping watching pornography. If stopping watching pornography wasn't difficult, then why can't people just stop on the dime? And I'll leave it at that. So, yeah, and May 1st, 2020, I put my video games away. Now, I've played video games and / competitive video games for the better part of a decade. Played high-level Call of Duty for years and years and years. Anyone that plays Call of Duty, they'll play game battles or CMGs. You'll know what I'm talking about because I'm a nerd. And some of you are going to watch this and say, what a nerd. And that's what I did. And it was really, really bad for a really, really, really long time. My wife almost divorced me. She's upstairs in the bathroom right now listening to everything I'm saying. She probably could say, yes, I was going to divorce him. So it was really bad. I had no connection to anyone but short-term instant gratifications. And all the things I heard over the years were, oh, just don't think about your saliva and swallowing or breathing. I've been told to spit into a cup. These are by all well-intentioned individuals. Once you go to someone and you ask them for marriage advice and they're like a 40-year-old single bachelor guy, yeah, they could give you some advice on being married, but if they've never been married, how substantial is their advice going to be? It's like going to someone and getting marriage advice from someone, coach, counselor, whoever, who's never been married. It doesn't matter what the theory says. The best marriage advice is going to come from like someone like Erica's grandparents who've been together for 65 years. They just celebrated their 65th, I believe, on January 4th of this year. Those people give the best advice usually from an experience standpoint. So I was looking for someone that had compulsively looking for someone who had experienced this. So what I did was I came across a couple different people. One of them, my buddy Aaron, who showed me who Rob was, another guy, Miracle Mindfulness, and a bunch of different people on YouTube where I'm like, whoa, these people have Sensorimotor OCD. And then listen to them talk, and I was just becoming very, very hopeless. And because none of us really knew what we were doing. You know, we were just people on YouTube like, what do? We can't stop noticing our sensations. How do we bring this down? And then I found Rob Ray, the OCD Recovery. In the very first call with Rob, he said to me, hey, what if I told you were going to take you 3 years to recover? I told him I would kill myself because I was very dramatic. And I joke about that because it makes me realize just how low I was. And then I spent the next 3 years breaking down my fears, decreasing all my avoidance behaviors, breaking down my catastrophizing, overgeneralization, black and white thinking surrounding my sensations. Now, what I hear all the time is this, because I talk to hundreds of sensorimotor sufferers. I had 65 new sensorimotor sufferers coming in 2022 alone, plus all the people I DM and message on Facebook and the WhatsApp groups. So, oh, I have hyper awareness about my hair. I'm different. Oh, I have hyper awareness about my thoughts and my consciousness. I'm different. You're no different. OCD is OCD. If it's a fear of a sensation, whether it's a bodily sensation, the big five I call it, blinking, breathing, swallowing, salivating in your heartbeat, or hyper-awareness of your consciousness, or hyper-awareness of your clothes, or hyper-awareness of physical symptoms of anxiety, GAD and panic disorder, shame and guilt, whatever it may be, if it is a sensation, it doesn't have to be bodily sensations, there is a fear that's present, and that fear is, if I notice this for the remainder of my life is ruined. I can't stand noticing this. And then what we do is you try to compulsively become present. So what you want to do is you want to get the books on the reading list, right? Book number 1, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything, Yes Anything, found at OCDrecovery.com underneath the free resource tab. And you want to break down those on paper, the exercises on paper. My worst case scenario, right? If you're watching this for the first time, this is exactly why you're stuck. Number one, you have lots of compulsive and avoidance behaviors based around not trying to notice your sensation. Maybe you're meditating all the time. These are short term. I'm not saying meditation, yoga, and all that stuff can't be beneficial. I'm saying if you're using it as a primary approach to decrease your awareness of your sensations, you're not going to recover. And I think I know this better than most because I've done it. And I've held the recovery for a few years now. I mean, 2 years. So I know exactly what people are doing wrong to a T. And that is trying to habituate. You'll never hear me use the word habituate. Anyone who says the word habituate out of their mouth when it comes to sensorimotor OCD, I know they don't have a clear understanding of the picture. Because the picture is this. What if you do notice your sensation for the rest of your life? What if it never habituates? What if it stays there forever? That catastrophizing black and white. So you're going to want to break that down. If you go through my other videos and you'll watch it, we'll show you how to break it down. And you want to decrease all your avoidance behaviors, all of them. So let's say you have breathing OCD. We'll stick with breathing OCD for the remainder of this video. Avoiding intimacy, avoiding the gym, avoiding anything cardiovascular, avoiding anything like jumping on the trampoline, hiking, anything that would increase your heart rate. A lot of people come in. I had a guy the other day, I used to play basketball. I don't play basketball anymore. I don't want to become hyper aware of this. What if I pass out? And then with breathing OCD, there's a massive fear of what if I pass out and die? So sometimes health OCD is mixed in there as well. And then on top of that, the manual breathing. What if I'm like this for the rest of my life? You're going to have to get comfortable with that for as long as it's going to take. No deadlines. That's how you recover from sensorimotor OCD, and that's how you recover from GAD and panic disorder, is breaking down those sensations and realizing that they're not as terrible as you thought they were. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We have a sensorimotor webinar coming up. I believe it's on March 15th. If you're interested in that, please email info@ocdrecovery.com. We will get back to you in a timely fashion. Guys, there is so much hope. I've had it. I've gone through the ringer. People tell me to spit in cups. People tell me to not think about it. People tell me to say, well, everyone breathes. Well, I don't give a shit what anyone else does because I can't stop thinking about my breathing and I'm going to be scared for the rest of my life. So the blanket statements, always be wary in OCD and anxiety recovery about the blanket statements, right? The harm OCDs are the easiest. If you have a fear of losing control and hurting a loved one, no amount of thoughts or leaving it there is going to unlatch that deeply held, strong belief about if I do this, I can't accept myself. If I'm stuck with sensorimotor for the remainder of my life will be ruined. How could anyone notice their sensations? How could anyone notice their breathing? Manually breathe for the rest of their life and not hate their life. You can do it. You can change your perspectives. There's so much hope. I've been there. Thank you so much. Again, coaching and webinar services, info@ocdrecovery.com. And please comment down below. Have a good one, everyone.